Hello and welcome to my anticipated releases for quarter 3. I can't believe we're talking about quarter 3 in 2022 video. So I have about 10 or 12 anticipated releases to share with you today. Something that I realized as I went over my list is that a lot of the anticipated releases that I'm excited about for this quarter, which falls in summer, really kind of have that fall aesthetic. I love the atmospheric fall reads, and so I'm naturally drawn to them, apparently. So most of the ones that I have selected seem to fall into that category. So I actually did go back into NetGalley and Goodreads to look and see if I could find some that also had a little bit more of a summer vibe. And there really are some cute covers on these books, but they're all just kind of too light of romance for my kind of style, and I just wasn't feeling it. I already have my summer stack ready to go for vacation and picked out, and so this is mostly books that I will be reading with that fall vibe, possibly during the summer. So coming out July 5th is a middle grade book that is published by Little Brown Books for Young Readers. It's by M.T. Khan and it is called Nura and the Immortal Palace. So the blurb about this book opens up saying that it is Arusha meets Studio Ghibli. I recently just did a movie book review on Studio Ghibli movies, and so I'm obviously all about something that markets it as being connected with Studio Ghibli. So our main character, Nura, works in a mica mining industry in a small village in Pakistan. Her mother works really hard in a sweatshop, and it turns out that the children also have to help support it. Well, as time progresses, it turns out that there are children that are missing. Nura decides that she's going to go and try to find these children who are her friends. And in the process of searching for them, she ends up coming to a jinn community. In this community, you know, her mother has always told her to warn her against them, that they were tricksters, but she's really feeling like, well, they're not so bad. Well, come to find out, they invite her to come to this hotel. And once she is in the hotel, she ends up making a mistake and getting moved into a working quarter, and she discovers that there is a lot that is ugly and nasty and terrible about these working conditions, and she realizes that in order to save herself and the other missing children, that she needs to find a way for them to all escape. One of the things that I like about this is that it is an own voices book. The author is Pakistani Muslim and just lends so much credibility and culture to this story, and I'm really excited to be able to read it. I really wanted to pull in some graphic novels into these anticipated releases that I have, and so I've found a couple that you'll hear about, but this one is going to be published on the 26th of July. It is being published by Diamond Book Distributors. It is called Darryl Openworld by Remy Gurin and Oliver Peru, and this is a YA graphic novel, and it is inspired by a popular European YA series by Oliver Peru. I don't know anything about that series, but it did seem intriguing. Again, the cover was gripping. Our character is Darryl. He is the most popular journalist in Openworld, which is the world that this story takes place. What makes him so successful as a reporter is the fact that he can travel among various realities. He is very well known and legendary for these investigations that he does, and through his journeys he ends up coming across this nefarious character and realizes that everyone's safety and security is at stake. So just for the mere fact of being curious, especially since this European YA series is so popular, I'm just curious to see what it's all about. And even if I'm not fond of the graphic novel or the artwork, I may be intrigued to try to figure out how to get access to the actual series that was originally written. So getting published on the 2nd of August is Wild is the Witch by Rachel Griffin. She wrote Nature of Witches. That was a really popular debut novel. And this is not part of that. It's not like a duology. It's a separate standalone. It is a YA fantasy. And the story here is that Iris Gray is our main character, and she accidentally sets up this curse that could have dire consequences. It ends up getting taken by an owl, I think, who is a prominent character in the book. And so she and Patrick, who is the love interest, is it Patrick? No. So she and Pike, who is a love interest, ends up going on a journey to find this owl to try to prevent this curse from being spread out and having dire consequences. The reviews that I've read about it all talk about that one bed trope, except that it's a one tent trope. So what I like about this, I mean, I'm okay with the romance part, I think. I'm hoping that it's not an open door romance, but we'll see. But I like the fact that they are trekking through the Pacific Northwest in the woods. It just seems like such a great fall vibe, and it's my favorite. The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd Jones is coming out August 16th, and this is published by Little Brown Books for young readers. So this is a YA. Emily Lloyd Jones wrote Bone Houses. So while this isn't a duology and part of the Bone Houses, it is supposedly set in the same world, which I love. If you spend so much time as a writer world building, it makes sense to kind of keep that world in place. But supposedly this has a whole new set of characters, so it feels fresh. And this is the story of Myriad, who is a water diviner, and she ends up having her powers exploited by this prince who poisons everyone when she notifies him of a well that is his enemies. And she's really betrayed by him doing this, getting information from her and then poisoning people to their deaths. And so she takes off and leaves. But she can't hide forever, and she has somebody from her past, like a mentor, who finds her and convinces her that the best revenge is to go and defeat the prince so that he can't hurt anyone anymore. And it sounds like, from what I've read, that she gets this kind of ragtag group of people together to be able to go and defeat this evil prince. And the marketing blurb calls it half heist novel and half dark fairy tale, which again sounds perfect. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana comes out August 23rd. This is published by Berkeley. It is an adult fantasy romance. And this one on NetGalley offers an excerpt to read, which I love, having a flavor of what the book is about so that you can kind of decide, do you like the writing style? Do you like the characters and the voice? So in this one, I really enjoyed reading the excerpt. Our main character is Micah Moon. She's part of this Society of Witches. It sounds like they just kind of randomly came up with the name of the Secret Society of Witches. Oh, I should say, this is the author who wrote Kiki Breaks a Kingdom. She currently has Kiki Breaks a Curse, I think, the second one in that. And I read Kiki Breaks a Kingdom, as did my oldest, and really enjoyed that fantasy creation. And so that's part of the reason why this is on my list, is because I know that I like her writing style, but that is middle grade while this is adult. So we'll see. So Micah is part of this Society of Witches, and they're all different ages, supernatural ages. Some of them are like not normal human ages, but much older. Micah's pretty young. The idea here is that everyone is an orphan who is a witch. And there are other witches out there, not part of their society. They just have their own group. They meet in secret, and Micah is not different from anyone else. She was an orphan. She was cared for by this one kind of head witch and given a place to stay and to live, with the understanding that she would follow the rules. And the rules are part of that you're not this really loud about being a witch. Well, Micah decides to create a YouTube channel or a social media presence where she does magic tricks. And she says that the tricks that she does are not going to let anyone know that she actually is a witch. She's just doing what other people on YouTube are doing, where they do magic tricks. But someone sees her videos and is able to determine that she is indeed a witch. And she gets invited to stay in a property with them, a large house, I think, and she's almost like a governess, asked to be a governess of these young kids who are also witches. There is this curmudgeonly love interest there, and it seems like this concept of being an orphan and not ever really feeling like you have a place to belong is brought in here, and kind of she starts to feel like she belongs, but of course peril and danger ensue, and so she, I think, has to figure out how to protect her new family and also protect this secret society that she is a part of. Next is Ravenfall by Kaylin Josephson. This is published by Delacorte Press. It is a middle grade and it is marketed as a mystery and thriller. This one also has an excerpt on NetGalley, so if it sounds interesting, I would recommend going and finding that. But this, again, has so much potential with the themes that it is throwing out there. So Ravenfall is an inn, and Annabelle is a 13-year-old girl who lives at this inn with her family. Her family all have different magical gifts, and her gift is that if she touches someone, comes into contact with someone, she is able to see any deaths that they have seen or been a part of. And the thing to note is that these killings that she sees can be foreshadowing. So she has the ability to stop them, which is a lot of pressure. And so it really makes her kind of like not want to touch anything. She really kind of pulls back at parties and is like part of literally the ivy on the wall in this magical inn. It sounds like she's got some kind of unkind older siblings who encourage her to go out and mingle, not to be afraid. And of course, the moment she steps out onto the dance floor, someone brushes up against her and she sees this horrific killing. And it turns out that she is now consumed with this, trying to figure out this death that she saw. And lo and behold, she meets Colin, and he is at Ravenfall in order to try to figure out what happened to his parents and his family. So what I love, in addition to this magical inn and these families with all of these magical gifts, is that there are Celtic elements, so Celtic beasts that are very ancient, that are pulled into this story. There's this idea of multiple worlds and kind of getting an other world pulled into the current world. So a lot of magical elements and world building at play here, and the cover looks beautiful, so I'm really excited to read that. Speaking of beautiful covers, Thistlefoot by Jenna Rose Nethercott. This is being published by Doubleday. It is a fantasy and also a middle grade, I think some science fiction. So if you have read, I'm pointing my finger, the House with the Chicken Legs and The Girl Who Speaks Bear, I think that's the similar folktale that this book is pulling in, because there is a house with chicken feet, and there's also the Yaga siblings, just like is in the House of the Chickenfoot there is a Yaga in there as well. So the marketing blurb pulls in Naomi Novak's Spinning Silver as an example as well, and also Neil Gaiman, both of whom I've really enjoyed reading. And so adding in those two authors and then also this Eastern European folklore just sounds marvelous. So our main characters are Bellatine and Isaac, who are a sibling set. They're estranged, but then they get notification that they have come into an inheritance, only to discover that this house with the chicken feet is the inheritance. And so I would really call that also the third character. And so they end up on this journey, and they are being followed by a long shadow man who has the house's ultimate destruction in mind. The marketing blurb calls this an enchanted adventure illuminated by Jewish myth and adorned with lyrical prose as tantalizing and sweet as briar berries. And while I liked The House of the Chicken Feet and The Girl Who Speaks Bear, I'm excited to read another interpretation of this. And I feel like I'm ending all of these with, I'm excited to read this. I am. Okay, so the next one is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. This is going to come out on the 13th of September. It's by Zulfa Khatul. This is also published by Little Brown Books for young readers, and it is a YA novel. This one has a different flavor than the rest of them, and it is about the war in Syria. And so the main character is Salama Kassab. She was a pharmacy student when this revolution and war started in Syria, and so it sounds like she's really kind of trying to figure out, does she stay in her home country that she loves, or does she leave? She is so consumed with this idea of figuring out how to get out of this country with, you know, military and bombings and assaults and bullets, that she creates an imaginary character named Khalf. As the book progresses, I think she ends up coming into contact with a love interest. And so now she really is torn between, again, the country that she loves, this man that she loves, and her safety, and kind of trying to figure out what is the right answer for her and her family. Next is Violet and Jobie in the Wild by Lynn Ray Perkins, who is a Newbery Medal author. This will be published on September 13th. It is published by HarperCollins. It is a middle grade hybrid of a graphic novel. So there's a lot of text, but there's a lot of illustrations too. This has animal characters personified, so if that's not your thing, then you can just skip ahead. The thing that really attracted me to it is it said, for people who love Skunk and Badger, which we just finished that as a read aloud in our family and loved it. Brave Writer also had that as, I think, one of their Arrow books last year. And she has, what is the one? It's an eggs one. I can't remember. The second one is part of the Brave Writer Arrow books for the 22-23 year also. Love Skunk and Badger. And then Nuts to You was mentioned in the marketing blurb, and our friends gave us Nuts to You. My kids loved that. That had squirrels as main characters. And then it mentions Stuart Little. I mean, all these books that we loved, it's saying like this fits into that genre. And so I was like, well, this is a win. So it's a thrilling, supposedly, and funny adventure story with animals. And there's bravery and family and friendship. And the two characters are named in the title. So it's Violet and Jobie. And it has all kinds of illustrations, black and white illustrations in it that the author did herself. So the idea here is that Violet and Jobie are house mice. They get caught in a trap. The boy who lives in the house begs his mother, please don't kill them, just let's release them outside. And so they get released outside. Well, they're house mice, so they're really not used to living outside. And so this is their adventure in trying to figure out how to live as outside mice. Next, Dreams Factory by Jerome Hammond. This will be published on September 13th. The publisher is Diamond Book Distributors. The blurb mentioned City of Ember and The Golden Compass, both of which I liked well enough. This is set in London in 1892. Indira is our main character. Her brother goes missing. This reminds me a little bit of the, you know, the era fits also of the Dickens plight of these children who are workers, and her brother goes missing, and so she ends up trying to figure out where he went. It turns out she keeps, as she's trying to find him, keeps coming into contact with this coal mining owner, this evil woman. And so through this, Indira realizes that all of these children are being kidnapped by this coal mining owner, and she's on a plight to try to save these children. Now, I will say, the reviews on this on NetGalley are not the most encouraging, but I am gonna give it a try, just honestly because the cover looked cool. But I am putting that disclaimer out there that the reviews are not super encouraging. So I would love to hear what you're anticipating that is being released in this Q3. So please feel free to leave that in the comments below. And then if you know anything about the books that I have mentioned, or maybe you got approval on NetGalley to read them and you've read them, please let me know that as well. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time. What's the name of the new Skunk and Badger #2? Something about eggs. But we don't remember what. Okay, that's fine. That's what I got too. Something about eggs. Anyway.